Hey there, Alex Kidman here with just a quick little newsy update because Apple has made some changes to Apple Maps as it represents Australia and Aotearoa, New Zealand. Specifically, from today, if you're searching across either country, you'll also see the original Indigenous place names, reserves, and localised information. And that's information that's been developed with consultation from the traditional owners of the land. And I think that's a really neat and much needed step. And this isn't just a step of grabbing some dusty, probably racist old government map from the 1950s and adding whatever detail might have been there and calling it a day in the name of some kind of PR win. No, they've actually used localized data sources. So, for example, here in Australia, Apple says it's used data supplied by the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, along with details supplied from a quantity of local language holders, language centres, Aboriginal land trusts, and ranger groups. And in New Zealand, a similar process was used, consulting with Indigenous cartographers and several iwi Māori tribes to the same effect. And this isn't just place names either. For the groups approached, specific areas will also display place cards giving information about that area from an Indigenous perspective, with, certainly from what was shown to me in a briefing before the update went live, a mix of information covering not just geography but also cultural importance, connections to land and law, and images captured of that area by members of that cultural group across both countries. Now, because Apple Maps draws from a central data source rather than being an installed app in this instance, there's no specific update needed on a device end. You'll just see the data as you use MapKit-enabled products, and searches using Indigenous names will also now work across those services. The data will also be present and able to be displayed in other applications that use that kind of data. Apple's example shown to me was a weather app showing the traditional name, but there's scope for other usage as well. So why does this matter? Well, I think this matters because it's a really interesting implementation of a mix of what is basically quite dry mapping data with a much richer cultural source. And, of course, it's an incredibly welcome one. Now, I do obviously have to say, I am seeing this and talking about this from the position of being a middle-aged man of European descent, not having any particular Indigenous connection, with all the cultural baggage that brings with it. Still, it's hard not to see this as a positive first step. Ultimately, knowledge is understanding, and even just bringing up the details of an area can increase curiosity about that area, about its history, add context to it, and hopefully help to foster understanding and movement along the reconciliation path with the Indigenous populations in both Australia and New Zealand. And certainly from an Australian perspective, that's something I think we've gotten far wrong more than we've gotten right over the years. I mean, a small personal example, and this is just speaking to my own personal knowledge. One of the screenshots supplied had a place name I didn't know, so I went and looked it up so that I now know about that. I've now increased my own personal knowledge. That's a small win, but it's a win nonetheless. All of this stuff is global as well. It's not localized in any way, so no matter where you are on the planet, if you're looking at these countries, you will see this data. And again, that just raises awareness. It raises understanding. There's a great quote in Apple's press release, which I'm actually going to read out. It's from Rodriguez Pindying. I hope I'm getting that surname correct. Please forgive me if I'm not. A community member from Aotearoa. This isn't just about geography. It's about preserving our culture and ensuring Aotearoa's legacy for generations. Through Apple, we have the rare privilege of sharing our heritage on a global stage, reminding the world that no matter how distant we may seem, our connection to the land, to each other, and to the world is universal. Exactly so. And look, while it's awkward for some, it also does rather highlight where colonisation happened and what's happened in those areas, if only because there appear to be areas that are data rich and others that are data poor. It is, however, something of a first step, even though Apple's position is that it's been working on this for years, and I don't doubt that it has been for a second, but it's not a comprehensive library of place cards and data for everywhere, and I'm hopeful that the work continues beyond being a simple, single PR win for Apple.